You know what they say Ford stands for, don't you? It stands for fix it again, Tony.
You're thinking of a Fiat, Dale.
How's it going, guys? It's your boy Random Tall Guy. Welcome back to the channel. On today's video, I'm working on the 2010 Jeep Patriot, and I'm gonna be replacing the rear upper and lower control arm on this vehicle. It's super simple. I'm just gonna make a quick how-to video in case you guys are wondering how to do this properly. So first thing first, I went ahead and I blocked off the front wheels. I went ahead and I jacked up the vehicle using the jack on the rear differential. I went ahead and jacked it up. I went ahead and put a jack stand on the pinch well. If you take a look right here. And then I went ahead and I rest the vehicle onto the jack stand. All right, guys, and before I forget, this is the tools we're gonna use. We're gonna use the impact, we're gonna use some extensions, we're gonna use nothing but 18 millimeters. All the bolts are 18 millimeters, so that should be simple and easy. I got regular sockets and wrenches. We're gonna need an 18 for all the bolts and a 19 for the lug nuts. And this is the upper control arm, and this is the lower control arm. Now these control arms are interchangeable. You can use them on the left hand side or the right hand side. They're both exactly the same. I did compare the parts and they're exactly identical. So you could put this one on the left hand side or the right hand side. Same thing with this one. So the first thing first, we're gonna go ahead and remove the 5 lug nuts using the 19 millimeter. All right, with the tire removed, this is gonna give us access to all the hardware we need to remove. Now I like removing the lower control arm first because that should allow this trailing arm to drop, which should give us more access in removing the top nut for the top bolt for the upper control arm. All right, guys, I forgot to mention we need to remove this sway bar end link here. The top one right there, that's a bolt. It's going to be a 14 millimeter, and same thing with the bottom here is a nut, is a 14 millimeter. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove that real quick. We're gonna go ahead and loosen these 3 fasteners. Now they're all gonna be torqued down to 70 foot-pounds, so you might need a breaker bar to break them free because they're pretty rusty. So you have a nut and bolt here, a nut and bolt here, and a nut and bolt here. So we're gonna remove this real quick. And just like that, the lower control arm is out. Took me no more than 10 minutes. It might take longer for you guys, depending how tight and how hard is it to remove those 3 bolts. Now if you take a look over here, there's a reason why I'm replacing it, because all the bushings are completely garbage on both sides. There's a lot of wiggle room, and there's a creaking noise that's happening every time these control arm flexes. Over here, you take a look at it, the bushing is shot. Same thing, this side is all mangled. All right, so we got that out of the way. Now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna remove the upper control arm here. For this one, I'm gonna use the jack to support the trailer. For this bolt right here, you just wanna be careful. You have a brake line right here, so you really don't want this bolt to be rubbing against this brake line too much, because it is made out of plastic. Alright guys, and just like that, we got the upper control arm and the lower control arm out of the way. So now we're going to go ahead and install the new parts. This is a new one right here. It's exactly identical. You just want to make sure they're exactly the same. And pay attention to the sides. If you look at it, this hole right here will go towards the cross member or the subframe. So in this case, it will go just like that. Because there's no other way. It can't go like this. It has to go like that. the hole is going to be facing or be closest. So that being said, just pay attention to this hole. I think that's the reason why they drilled this hole there, because I can't see any other reason. And so that you know that this hole is towards the cross member of the subframe. All right, so just make sure that you align the sleeve with the hole, and then go ahead and put the fastener back in. And you might need to wiggle it around the control arm a little bit to make sure it fits. All right, so I went ahead and I snuggled up the bolts. I did not tighten it or torque it down yet. We want the weight on the vehicle to be resting on the suspension before we tighten the fasteners. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do this one now. This one, you're gonna have to use a screwdriver or use your hand and kind of push the trailing arm so that these two holes right here can align. Alright guys, with the upper control arm installed, we can go ahead and remove the jack. So now the trailing arm is going to rest on the upper control arm. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and install the lower control arm. I'm going to go ahead and put the fastener for this side first. I think that should be the easiest thing. So then we can have this pivoting, and then we can bring it up to these two. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and raise this, and I'm just going to snake in all the hardware here. Alright, looks like the next fastener I should be able to install will be this one here for the rear strut. Alright guys, sorry about that, but the GoPro overheated, so it turned off. So I went ahead and I put the sway bar end link back on in case you guys need to know how all these pieces goes together. You have the nut here, you have a washer, a rubber piece, a washer, a sleeve, a washer, a rubber piece. Underneath is a rubber piece, a washer, and then finally the nut. So that's basically how to reinstall the sway bar end link. Now you just want to torque it down until the rubber becomes a bit squished down, and then you should be all set. Don't over torque these because this long bolt will snap. Alright, and the final thing we need to do is line up these two holes. Now you could use the jack and you can raise this up a little bit, and that should force this bushing to go in, or you can use a screwdriver. Alright guys, so I went ahead and I installed all the fastener for the lower and upper control arm and also for the sway bar. So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to install the tire back on. I'm going to lower the vehicle. I'm going to let the weight of the vehicle rest on the suspension, and then we're going to go back and we're going to go ahead and torque down everything that we loosened. Alright guys, so I went ahead and put the wheel back on. Now I believe I have enough room to crawl under and torque down all the fasteners. So to torque it down, basically in the manual it looks like they all share the same torque spec, which is 70 foot-pounds. If you take a look over here, the lower control arm to the trailing arm, the lower control arm to the cross member, the upper control arm to the cross member, and the upper control arm to the trailing arm, they're all sharing 70 foot-pounds. And also the fastener that connects the struts to the lower control arm looks like that's 73 foot-pounds, but you can round it up to 70 foot-pounds. It doesn't really matter on that part. So all of them is going to be torqued down to 70 foot-pounds. We're going to go ahead and do that real quick. Hopefully I have enough room. Now, as I mentioned, you want the weight of the vehicle to be resting on the suspension, because if you torque it while it's up in the air and you lower down the vehicle, the bushing is going to twine, it's going to twist, and you will stretch, tear, or pull the bushing, which can completely destroy the part, and then you have to replace it again. Alright, and if you take a look under, it looks like you have enough room to access the 3 bolts for the lower control arm. As for the upper one, you do have access. If you take a look over here, you can get to this one perfectly fine. And the upper one, you could get to it if you're skinny enough. You could get your arm in there and also get the torque wrench in there. Alright guys, quick update. So I was able to torque down all the fasteners besides this one on the upper control arm. This one, and the upper control arm, the one that goes to the cross member. I was able to get a torque wrench up here. I was able to torque it down. As for this one, I'm gonna use a socket and extension. I'm gonna torque it down over here, and that should be all set. Don't forget to tighten the sway bar end link. As I mentioned, don't torque it down too much. Just torque enough where you see the rubber being squished a little bit, and you should be all set on that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and finish that up, and we should be all set. Alright guys, once you torque down the fasteners, you should be all set. I recommend take out the Jeep, drive it around, try to hear for any squeaks or any creaking noise. Overall, it's a really simple repair. It took me about an hour to get this done. Honestly, it took me more time torquing it down on the floor than it took me removing all the components. It's pretty damn easy, shouldn't take that long. Alright guys, so I'm gonna end the video here. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing. Alright, see you later. Bye bye.